like it should be. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. It did it earlier. Yes, it did it. All
Success.
right. We are kapla. Man, I'm about to kaplop it into the toilet. No, anyway. This one, actually, I'm working on two enterprises right now. One is this one. I'm printing off some of the saucer sections. This is a 1/350 on the Enterprise.
Nice.
So, did I show you this one already?
You showed me the earlier print part for the shuttle bay, which had been in like translucent white, I guess.
Yeah, I changed that over, and there were also some issues on that printer. It's having some layer shift lines, so I think I need to do some servicing on it. It's only got like 1,200 hours of print time on it since it's been serviced, so maybe I should do that.
Maybe.
So I'm printing these off on the older, slower one, and the other one I've been working on diligently is the Enterprise C. Matter of fact, I can do this and wow you with the wonderful lights coming off of it. Matter of fact, you can. But yeah, I've been working on that and working on getting things properly done in the. As you can see here and stuff, I've got all kinds of beacon lights and strobe stuff, and I've got the board from Tenna Controls. That's this little board that this is a cool board because it's got multiple different settings for the different strobe and beacon patterns for, oh God, what all ships does it do? It does TOS, Refit, Reliant, Voyager, D&E, and Grissom timing, as well as the double strobe pattern on the JJ Price. All on this little bitty chip.
I can believe it.
Yeah. And, but I paid, I mean, even though this is one of the cheaper things you can get from Tenna Controls, it is, oh yeah, and it's bespoke too. He actually has them make it for him. Hold on, let me type in here. I am one of those guys that has my computer tied into my phone and everything like that, so I just got a text from the boy I had to respond to. But the cost for this, including shipping, was $26. And I got to thinking, there's no reason that I can't, have an Arduino Nano, knockoff where I can get them, 3 of them for $15. There's no reason I can't get one of those and program it so I can do everything that this thing does, and it will be as, not even a quarter as much. Yeah, so that's one thing I'll be doing here in the future.
Cool.
Yeah, it's that kind of miserliness that started me making my own wine, because I was like, hell, if I'm going to pay this much for somebody else's wine. So I figured out how to do it, and now I have my own winery. Figure that crap.
Well, you got to start somewhere, and it's a great place to start. I mean, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's what I've been working on this weekend, is doing all that and figuring out the wiring and getting everything run in and painted up and blocked off. What have you been up to, dude?
I've been working on the Beowulf blueprints, finishing up the stuff for that and the different variations, because I have to turn that in for Department of Technical Services whenever we go ahead and launch.
Now, this is a question that I have, because I've been chucking away at those things too, and I've got enough now of the schooling, and I've got everything passed, and I get enough now of the schooling that I can theoretically, I was going to go ahead and, because they have those ones where you can certify as command ready.
Yeah, what? Bridge certification is what they're called.
Yeah, bridge. Yeah, that's it. I was going to do that for the engineering. I've already got everything passed for it. All I have to do is just submit it.
Yeah.
And some of them are damn silly easy, like going over the the diagrams of the NX-01. That was just like, okay, I put it up here, and I have the thing over here, and I'll just look back and forth because that's what they tell you to do. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, I'm plugging away, doing some of those. I'm pretty sure they're hating me.
I'm sure Christine's happy that you're getting good scores. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Although, what was the thing I was going to say? I was wondering when it comes to the getting your ship, the Beowulf ready. You're having to do all diagrams and everything, right?
Yeah.
All right. Not to speak ill of our fellow members out there, but there are that a lot of us. Like, if I had to come up with diagrams, I know I couldn't. I'd be like, it would be like stick figure level. I'm not a diagrammy kind of guy. I'm hands on. If they wanted me to send in a diorama of everything, I could do that. But but drawing it out, I couldn't. So these other people, they have ships. What do they do for diagrams? I mean, do they just download like, okay, we're bog standard Galaxy class, so we're just going to submit the diagrams?
A lot of people, what they do is they get like a diagram for a ship.
Yeah.
A lot of nominal ships are standard whatever's like Galaxy, Constitution 2, Excelsior, Sovereigns. And then you get the odd duck ones that are like, well, we've decided to add an extra nacelle or extra two nacelles. Like, I think, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember the name of the ship. I think it's the Freedom, or was it the Peacemaker? Anyway, it has four nacelles. It's basically Galaxy class with four nacelles, one on top of the other. And then there's ships like there was a ship called the Matrix, which had this really odd, from my perspective, cranky sort of wing. You know how in World War II, how the Mustang had this, like, if you watch the mounting on the hull, it went like from the fuselage, it went down and then came out at an angle, so it kind of formed like a wing shape like that.
Yeah.
So they just basically did the opposite. It came out like this off of the backbone, came out to a nacelle, and then there was a cargo pod in between. I mean, who am I to judge? But I'm just saying that I've had seen people draw all sorts of stuff for a diagram, and as long as it's legible and the lines line up, it's basically the major rules for it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you go to DTS website, dts.sfi.org, you can go to the section where it says schematics, and you can look at ships and all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, I've shown it to you before for the Genetematics, so where they have the blueprint there for it.
Well, just a basic, exterior blueprint.
Yeah,
they didn't have like a complete breakdown. I think they had like a cutaway on it, and that was about it. Yeah, that was
submitted.
Yeah, and that was just what I was curious about. I just am also curious, how overkill are you doing this, young man?
Well, I put it this way: I haven't done deck by deck layouts. I know where everything is because I did a cross section and I completed the blueprint. I have the cross section. I know where the components go internally, so I can actually do call outs on the external hull. So I don't know where all the chairs are. I don't know where all the lights are. I don't know where the wiring shafts are.
So you don't have this mapped out enough yet that we can go ahead and slap it into a role-playing game, is what you're saying?
Basically, it's not to that point yet, but I can tell you which deck things are. So if you said which deck is that?
Now, I know you told me at one point, but I've completely forgotten. What class of vessel is the Beowulf?
She's a Beowulf class heavy cruiser, oddly enough. So
she's the namesake?
Yeah, she is. The actual funny part is that to the story of the Beowulf was when we originally launched as the Beowulf, the guy who was in charge of the USS Concord at the time, who was our mothership, was like, "Well, what do you want to name the ship?" And he's like, "Well," or we were like, and we were just like trying to spitball stuff. And one of the names we had gone with was Ragnarok, and we were like, we don't really want to go with Ragnarok because it's the end of the world. So we wanted
Yeah, it's
something
like
else.
naming your ship Armageddon.
Yeah. Which would actually be kind of funny if you were into 80s rock and you get Armageddon it,
Oh yeah.
But there's no Ragnarok song like that.
You could have an Iron Maiden.
Yeah, you could have an Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Or Black Sabbath, USS Black Sabbath. There was actually a shuttle Thanatos, which is why I'm making some of these jokes. There was a shuttle Thanatos that was trying to launch at the same time as the Nimitz or / Beowulf. But anyway, somehow what happened in the late 90s, after we'd already launched and was commissioned as the Beowulf, Mike Ferguson, had apparently talked to people out in Star Trek production land, and somehow the name Beowulf became associated with Bob Wesley and Commodore Wesley from the Ultimate Computer, because when they created the software for Starship Creator, his official biography lists his command, his first command, as the USS Beowulf, a Beowulf class heavy cruiser. I'm not kidding you. I'm quite serious about this. And so it stuck, and so it became the semi-canon official history. The Beowulf was a Beowulf class starship, and then this guy, like I said, later on, he was like writing a book called The Captain's Oath, and they were like, well, you're going to have Bob Wesley in it, and so he was going to be the commander of the Beowulf. And in the book, he doesn't say it, but he was like, I had thought it was going to be a Nimitz class starship from Discovery,
Right.
and so oddly enough, we started off as the Nimitz and became the Beowulf, and then that book says, the Beowulf is the Nimitz class, or his thought was it was a Nimitz class starship. But the whole number was given in the book as NCC 1605. We had actually thought about changing our whole number to NCC 1607, so it was 2 digits off. So I was like, whatever. So we'll go with NCC 1605.
Okay. I think, I was toying around. At one point, I had my brain was trying to come up with a blockade runner, because me, I'm all about the smaller ships. I think the big capital ships are done to death. There needs to be more small stuff, and so I was toying around with a blockade runner, and of course, then I was trying to figure out a way to combine the stylings and the lines of a Pontiac Firebird, because I was thinking the Bandit. All right. And I came up with an interesting one, but then I was gonna go ahead. I was like, well, if it's the Bandit, it needs to be NCC 1970, whatever the hell the year Smoking the Bandit came out. And it would be a fire, the Bandit, it's a Firebird class blockade runner. But and you could have. Well, I remember what it was that got me to it, is because I saw somebody had jokingly around had done a skin over of a standard Starfleet ship, but skinned it over with the screaming chicken, the flaming chicken from the Firebird on it, and I was like, that would be perfect for making runs to get some Romulan ale. All right. Which is what happened in Smokey and the Bandit. They were running alcohol. So, yeah. So it all fit in my head canon just perfectly. Too perfectly, actually. Maybe I have issues. I don't know.
Besides Sports Illustrated and Life and Time, people.
Yeah. I got more issues than Sports Illustrated. No, and then you could have, because they had Smoking the Bandit too, you could have, the second, outing of this, where instead of hauling in whales, it could be hauling an elephant, because, that's what they did in Smoking the Bandit too.
Are you going to have an orangutan as like the navigator?
No, come on. That was Clint Eastwood.
I know.
Right?
I was just going to say, it's a big
Besides, the whole joke on that one was the right turn, Clyde. I mean, that was the whole thing.
Well, the thing I always wanted to see in Star Trek, or at least maybe, in some sort of Star Trek-esque sort of outing, like Orville would be perfect too, would
Oh yeah.
be the Pork Chop Express, like a freighter that was the Pork Chop Express.
From Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then have Jack Burton show up in it and he'd be like, "Where's your payment?" "It's in the mail. It's in the
Yeah.
mail, man. It's in the mail."
Come on, man. It's all in the wrist.
Have him shoot a phaser up into the ceiling and the piece comes down on him, knocks him out.
So he misses the big fight. Yeah. That is an unsung. That is an unsung movie. That movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he was just burgeoning on the anti-hero, which is Scooby-Doo and Scrappy. I mean, and Shaggy. Not Scrappy. Scrappy's evil.
And nobody wants to take him.
Yeah, he's evil.
He's distasteful. Don't contaminate our Scooby with the Scrappy.
No, they were trying to go cutesy. They were trying to cash in on that Ewok money.
A lot of money there. I mean, and that's the only thing that ILM just about made during the 80s that was Star Wars related. Is Ewok Adventures.
Well, keep in mind that, we look back on it, because we grew up with it, and we thought they were all great. All right. And then they came out with the prequels, which were ass. And we didn't like them because we said, oh, no, they're trying too much to, pander to children and sell toys. Well, that's what they did with the first ones. The only reason that we don't have a problem with that was we were the kids that were being pandered to, and we were the kids that were playing with the toys.
And now we're no longer being pandered to. So what?
Yeah, exactly. Until they came out with all those Lego toys. Then when they had the Lego builds, now that's for adults again because you're not going to buy your kid a $200 Lego to put together, and yeah.
We actually went by I don't have them here to show they're in my car, but I found this store in Oklahoma City that's called Cosmic Collectibles, and they have the tiki glasses that are Star Trek that are ceramic, and so they had a Gorn and a Mugatu, and I had to snap them up because they were like ridiculously low priced.
They were what?
Tiki glasses, like a glass to drink out of that's ceramic. So they came out with Star Trek tiki glasses a long time ago. Like different characters, like the Mugatu, there's a Klingon, there's a Gorn, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Picard, Data, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you look them up, you can find them. I got a Gorn and Mugatu for like $30.
Hold on. This had to be Strange New Worlds, right?
No, this is old school. Look up Star Trek Tiki. I'm sure you can find it.
Okay, I am. Star Trek Tiki mugs. Well, I'm just wondering because Mugatu, he's Strange New Worlds.
No, Mugatu as in the animal with a horn sticking out of his head. You know how we talked about the dog a few weeks ago that was basically unhappy in the transporter episode where they stuck on a little horn on his head and he had like little antenna coming out.
Oh yeah.
They basically did the same thing with a guy in a white ape suit. So he had a giant horn on his head. He had spikes on his back, just like the dog. I was like, this is what happens. Parallel evolution on planets. The dog alien becomes the ape alien. The ape alien doesn't like people either and bites them viciously and poisons them.
It's those freaking precursors, man. And exactly. It's all their fault, them seeding everything around, like a frat house just chucking DNA all over the place. How dare they?
Just careless.
Careless. They're like the father who as soon as the pregnancy test popped positive, they, went for a pack of cigarettes and never came back.
You mean James T. Kirk?
Yeah. I wonder how many green orphans are out there.
You're my father. As many Star Trek Next Generation episodes as Picard is guilty of, like, having like a son or near son or whatever. Then after the series is ended and they go into Star Trek Picard, he turns up with a son. Dun dun dun.
Well, I'm thinking, you had in every one of the series, you had your players. All right,
Mhm,
Kirk in the first one. All right,
mhm,
then you had Riker. All
mhm.
right, and I'm trying to think who it was in Voyager. It wasn't
Uh,
Kim.
we had this discussion before about it being Tom Paris until he got B'Elanna, and
Yeah,
then B'Elanna just sort of derailed the Paris train in terms of that. I mean, I guess he was still with a hottie, but it wasn't like he was going to be having a hottie of the week moment.
no, it wasn't a hottie of the week.
Because
And
otherwise it'd be batleth of the minute.
what'd Jack say?
She'd kill everybody else in the ship, practically.
And DS9. I'm trying to think. It wasn't. It wasn't the Doctor, was it?
It was kind of the Doctor because it wasn't Miles, that's for sure,
No.
and it wasn't Worf. It was kind of the weird thing with Kira Nerys. She was the hottie of the ship station, and she got all the cute guys, I guess, would be the way they'd say it.
Yeah.
Um, but Cisco was, kind of that way, but he was mostly attached to Cassidy Yates. But occasionally
Yeah.
there's kind of love interest type of thing for him. But yeah, there really wasn't a lot of Kirk-esque moments to the Deep Space Nine crew that I can think of.
No. But then they brought it back in
Mhm.
Enterprise with Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hell, he's so bad he got knocked up. Um.
That just goes to show you those aliens. You shouldn't trust
Yeah.
them. You never can tell what's going to happen. You'll end up pregnant by a strange woman you don't know.
Exactly. And
And say,
one you didn't even.
how
One
did
you
this
didn't.
happen? They won't call me.
Never mind. I'll call you back. Um. Yeah. I'll just let the wife know. Podcast right now. There we go. Um. Why does this keep bouncing? So there. Maybe that'll stop it from bouncing. All right. Um. Anyways, what were we going to talk about tonight, really quick, because the wife wants to do dinner here and sometime soon.
We're going to discuss the return to episodic television in Strange New Worlds,
No, we
and or
weren't.
the other. Well, that was the one idea, and then the other one was the one that I think we went with was the discussing tech that should be but isn't here yet, that should have already been developed or should be already in existence. So
Right.
that
I
was
mean, and
one
that
of
was
the.
the thing is we were going to save the episodic Strange New
That's right.
Worlds for the next time,
Yeah,
which I would like to point out is not going to be next weekend because next
the weekend
weekend,
after.
yeah, is well, one, it would have normally been our standard meeting weekend, but
Mhm.
it's Ren Fair that weekend.
Yeah,
Are you going to be going to the Ren Fair?
yeah. I'll be going to the Run Fair for a little bit. Yep,
All right,
hanging out
and
there.
I believe from what little I asked, I believe that the XO of the ship, there's going to be like a lower decks meeting that evening at Headshots.
That's not surprising. Yeah, that sounds about right. Rolando. So yeah,
Yeah, he is a foodie.
yes, he is a
He
foodie
is,
guy.
yeah, he is a foodie. But anyways, yeah. So what we were talking about was the best Starfleet tech that should exist by now.
Yeah. So I would
And
probably say regular, honest to God, spaceships going between the planets because that's one of the things that we don't really have yet.
yeah,
I mean,
that okay. Yeah, we don't have that. We don't have warp drive. We don't even have reactionless drive.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have the deflector screens, the shields. We don't have
Although we're
transporters.
getting there. We're getting there with the deflector screens because they're actually talking about sticking them on ships to Mars pretty soon.
Yeah,
So,
well, basically it's just they're creating their own little Van Allen belt, right?
hmm
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
just like a magnetic shielding around it. Um, Let me see. We don't have holodecks.
Nope.
All right, but there are things that were predicted that we do
hmm
have.
hmm
All right, like voice interfaces with AI.
Yeah.
All right, and realistically, that has only come around in like the last 5 years or so. Well, a little
hmm
bit longer than that with Siri, but I don't trust her.
hmm
Um, and as a
Did you
matter of
hear that,
fact,
Siri? Did you hear that?
the A lady, so I don't trigger her. That I have, Alexa A. Aha!
hmm
See how I did that? I did that with Pig
hmm
Latin. The A lady, I just got a thing today that she piped off and said, "Hey, the A lady Plus is going to be released here soon. If you want, we can go ahead and put you on the waiting list for it." So I'm going to be on the waiting list. I'm on the waiting list for that. But anyways, also medical scanners. All right, we may
hmm
not have a full-on tricorder yet. Which
Yeah.
is another thing. That tricorder that one company is going to be coming out with, right?
hmm
All right. Well, they um, just emailed me this last week, and everybody who's on the waiting list, and said it's going to be here soon, and get ready for it. They're going to send out the things to the people who have the actual reservations on it, and
hmm
they you're going to have to order it from Amazon UK because they're a UK company. But they're asking people to limit themselves to only 2 tricorders to order. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I've been watching my emails, waiting for that thing to drop so I can get myself the tricorder. Anyways, yeah, but real world medical scanners that we may not have to the
hmm
level of what they had, but thanks to Star Trek, the people who came up with MRIs have even stated that they were influenced by Star Trek for them coming up with MRIs and CAT scans. So that's a big step forward for us.
hmm
Um, you can't hear it right now, but I've got 3D printers going on. So that was, we're at the burgeoning steps of replicators. And I
hmm
remember, you ever watch the amazing BBC commentator James Burke?
Oh yeah, I love them.
Yeah. Well, he is actually, in his formative years here, in his elder years. I remember like a couple years ago listening to an interview with him. He's part of a project where they are attempting to take these 3D printers to the next step and actually have them printing on the molecular level. All right. So that way, if you just had like a whole bunch of, bags of different, molecules of what you want, I mean, he said, it's slower, but you
hmm
can build something at the molecular level with, and that's where replicators are going to start at.
hmm I
So
like
even though
that.
the 3D printers aren't replicators, we're already looking at them, hopefully within the next, who knows how many years.
Yeah,
I'm not
we're
going to be an
probably within
Elon
the
here
next
and
10
say
years.
5 years. What?
I'd probably say within the next 10, but
Yeah, hopefully,
because,
something, like a beginning of it.
yeah,
And we've got universal translators
yeah.
with Google Buds and with Pixel earbuds and Google Translate and all the stuff like that. We have universal translators now.
The interesting thing, and this is a sub point to that, just real quick, is that with the universal translators, they're actually getting the phonology and the syntax recognition that they're able to see that whales and other animals speak the same way we do in terms of communication. They have
Hmm.
similar syntactic structures. So the thing that is interesting about that is whether it's by the general development of the brain, the way things work, or whether it's because it's a way that everything in information gets put together, the way the brain handles information and would do it anyway. it's hard to know, but it's interesting that, you and I, everybody else on the planet, and whales and dolphins and whatnot all talk and communicate in a similar manner, putting things together in our brain. And so that,
It got dark where you're at.
yeah, can you turn the light back on, Jack? Because, okay. It's dead, Jim.
Was that his way of telling you to hurry up so you guys can go have dinner?
The light. Scotty!
Give her all she's got, dude.
Mr. Scott.
Oh,
There we go.
now I'm blind. Okay, I'm awake. Thanks. I think. Now my optic nerve is like, hey, by the way. Bright light. I feel like the Mogwai.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
There are 3 lights. Anyway, sorry. I couldn't resist.
4, not 5.
No, there's 3. There's 3.
There's just 3? Okay.
There's
1, 2, 3. Yeah, whatever.
There's 3.
All right.
I can count. I have more digits than 5. 5 and 5 makes 10.
If we go to 11, I have to drop my pants. Anyway.
Anyway, but yeah, in terms of technology, one of the things that I'm mostly disappointed by is the lack of space technology development. And then the other one is gravity control technology. Although realistically, that one is kind of where, they have a lot more work to do on it, in any real way, shape, or form.
Yeah, gravity is a harsh mistress. She sucks.
Yeah, well, it's also one of those forces that is not really readily definable or obtainable. It's not like you can generate gravity particles. You can't generate gravitons readily. You can generate photons readily. I mean, obviously, I just had that example of that. But
that's always been one of my things that I always said that if I was, ever to do things over again and go back into school, I'd want to go physics and I'd want to work on gravity because it pisses me off. I mean, everything else that we interact with, we can actually touch, see, smell. We can point at it and say, yes, that's a molecule of water. That's that's a photon. Look, don't ask me where it is and how fast it's going because I can only give you one of those. But gravity. And that's the whole thing when it comes to the Higgs boson particle. And they were like, oh, it's the Higgs boson. You still haven't found gravity, dude. You just found something that gravity interacts with in our reality. You still haven't found the gravity.
The funny part about the Higgs is that it actually is the molasses particle, so to speak, of gravity and mass attainment, And the other part is that does the Higgs field require actual massive particles to actually create mass? So these are all issues in quantum physics that they're trying to wrestle with. And the graviton is an elusive, if not almost impossible item to find because we can detect the ripple in space-time by by the devices we've come up that are basically gravity meters, gratometers, if you want to use that term. But at the same time, it's like all they're basically doing is sensing the deviation in space-time. They're not actually measuring a particle coming through.
That's my point.
Yep. So it's the differentiation in that. The understanding of if they got gravity control technology, it would change the game because essentially you could reduce the mass effectively, the pull of a ship, and then you go, well, I can use less fuel to get this thing going up to speed because I don't have to push so hard against this other object.
What is that? The Epstein drive? We can make it work.
Yeah. the EMDR drive. Basically somebody else called it a bootstrap drive, but basically it takes an electromagnetic, shoots it into a bell, and then it resonates somehow special mechanically
Oh
in the
yeah.
bell, and then pushes you along. And scientists are like, well, it shouldn't work. Well, of course,
Well, then apparently there's things we don't know about yet, and
Yeah.
that's part of science is we figure this crap out.
Yeah, it's one of the things about attenuation and change of frequency and whatnot
Mhm.
that
Well,
may turn out that they don't understand.
Even Tesla said it's all down to frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Back in his day, Nikola Tesla, he was, firmly believed that everything depended on frequencies, and that's the reason he said he had his earthquake, machine and stuff like that it supposedly he had created. But no. Anyways, okay, what Star Trek tech has aged poorly or seems silly now?
I would say the view screens on the original series that were the desk ones. Those have aged very poorly.
Uh, yeah, those were. I mean, but you got to remember, for 1967, that was some high tech stuff there.
It
All right,
was.
and that's always the thing is we're always constrained by what our imagination can imagine, and also what we can pull off with the budget. That's always a big thing too.
Yeah,
But
it's one of the funnier. Yeah, it's one of the funnier parts to it. Yeah.
like things like data disks and isolinear chips. The fact, the captain, he would always slot that thing into his chair, or they were always putting the chips in and stuff like that. With what we have now with, integrated, systems and cloud storage and the ability just to, basically just to send files and stuff like that over, it makes no sense anymore to have those disks. That's like, that was their version of the floppy disk.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And anymore, we don't even need that.
Well, they're talking about bringing the CD back for digital data storage because they've found a new way to encode the data on the disk.
I've seen that, but
Mm-hmm.
there's two issues with that. One, that's more for just long-term storage. It's not for quick access, like if you're doing any kind of video work or anything like that. It's not necessarily for that. And two, you still run into the problem of what a lot of people don't realize, like my wife, she can't get it in her head, is that all these DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff that she purchased quite expensively back in the day, those things age out. They only have like a 20, 30-year lifespan, and those things start to degrade. And that's another problem with these CDs is, you may found a way to, encode more information into it, but you're still running into the problem of just material science and how long that material will last.
I agree.
And that's the reason I think we should go holographic and just put everything into glass. That's just me.
Well, I think it makes sense or quartz, but the other problem is making purified quartz so it don't have any substrate materials that are not supposed to be in it.
Yeah.
The other major problem with storage is, besides the fact that it degrades, is the fact that you have for constant use and taking in, taking out, the degradation of the hardware. I mean, people don't think of it, but VCRs have a finite lifespan.
Oh,
Even if you have pristine tape, the heads don't last forever. Neither does the machine itself. So there'll be constant maintenance and wear that you need to do on that.
And people don't remember that, VHS is still just a magnetic tape. And, those magnetic fields, they degrade over time as well.
Well, I can tell you where my dad worked, they would take cassettes of what they had for memory, whatever they were storing, and they would make copies of them all the time. And these were, for secure purposes, so they didn't lose any of the data. So essentially, yeah, I mean, if you get right down to it, everything that we own or that we create these days has a lifespan that's not going to probably be over 1,500 to 2,000 years. And that's a best case map right now, as far as I'm aware of. The thing that's odd is that metal cylinders in India they are essentially anywhere between, I think, something between 8,000, maybe 6,000, 8,000 years old. And these are iron cylinders that have writing on them. And the way that they were coated with some particular alloy that preserves them, keeps them from rusting. So the non-rusting pillars of something in India, I forget what they're called. But anyway, those are like the longest lasting items that we know of that I think are recorded information that we have that is intact. Not to say there aren't tablets or things they may have transferred or translated that may be older, may be snippets or parts of things, but not a complete object or item intact from its
Yeah.
original substrate.
Well,
So
have you ever heard of the Long Now?
I've heard of it. I can't place what it means or what I know about it though.
From what I remember, and I'm sure they're still working on it. They had purchased the land and all the stuff like that. It had a lot of backers. I think Bezos was a backer on it. But basically, the whole concept of the Long Now was they were going to create a perpetual clock that was so big and made out of stone and stuff like that, so big that you actually walk into it. All right. And this clock would be powered off of just, the changes in temperature from day to night and stuff like that. And the whole concept of it was, I believe, they wanted a clock that would continue to work for 10,000 years because they believed that there's a very distinct possibility, if you look at everything we've gone through, that, civilization that we know it could conceivably crash in the future. And so they wanted to have some place that was remote, that was seismically and geographically stable, that they could have something that would preserve something of our, knowledge. And their whole concept was doing it around this large, edifice clock that would basically have an entire keeper sect of individuals to take care of it and carry on the time, almost like a monastery, but instead of religion, it's of science and technology, and it's called the Long Now. Yeah, I haven't looked at it in several years, but I just pulled it up right now, and they've still got their website, they still got a Wikipedia page, and all the stuff like that going. Yeah, but anyways, that's but going back to it, another thing that did not age well on the Star Trek, comm badges.
Agreed.
All right, this right here, completely futzed comm badges. All right, and so I think that and those pads that they had. Now with what you can do with tablets and iPads and stuff like that is so much better than those little tabs. Those little pads ever thought they'd be.
The actual funny part is I could actually see getting one of those big black tablets from the original series with the lights on it that are kind of funny now to look at, and have it just go in and edit and put Fisher Price in the bottom of it, just casually edit it in, and then be like, why is Fisher Price manufacturing military or Starfleet equipment? Are you kidding me? This is indestructible. I can hurl this at Spock all day, and it'll be perfectly fine. And so I think you could update the pad to where it'd be more useful, as chucking it at Spock, but or Bones chucking it at Spock, because it'd probably be more likely than Kirk doing it. Just saying. But the other thing is that the technology back in the day, people thought that, oh well, we'll have to have these little cards. Getting back into how data is transferred and whatnot. You know, the tablets obviously connect or do something with the computer because, you know, people write their logs and do their logs and write their reports and it gets onto the computer. But, you know, the carts were like everything, you know, little data cards. And
But
William
they,
Wyndham plays with them like the balls from the guy from the Kane Mutiny. If you
yeah.
remember the little metal balls that he
But the
or
thing is,
marble.
the problem is that they used the pads like
Hmm.
cards. I mean, because
Yeah.
it was all the time. Oh, here, you know, they would just hand off the pads as if
Hmm.
the information was solely on there and could not
Hmm.
have been automatically transferred over to another pad.
All right.
And
And Rand kind of said, you know, that's the where it's going. It's going to be transferred immediately. And
yeah,
but you know, the writing is kind of wishy-washy on which way it goes.
yeah,
But it's funny and it's kind of obsolete. But the other thing is like the way things are presented in terms of data and computer interface is also very antiquated,
oh
which
yeah,
is kind of funny. I mean, it's because that actually caused the type of interface evolution, you know, for user interfaces and what we call graphic user interfaces, GUIs, because like TNG sort of reflects Apple-esque type of menu designs because of the frame. I mean, the left side of the column has all the function calls, and the right, you know, side of it has the title and all the information at the top. And then you have this little bar separating the top information area and the left column, and then you have the pane in the bottom, and people can scroll on the pane, you know, because there's little controls.
hmm
Um, but now it's, you know, people are like, oh, it's obsolete, it doesn't look great. Well, I mean, you're in 1986 7 when they were starting to work on next generation. They came up with this interface that was clean, it looked great, it looked great on television. I mean, people were like, this looks great, I mean, this is futuristic, this is awesome. Now people are like, well, it's not nearly sophisticated enough to handle all the computers now. Like, you knew better back in 87, man. Come
yeah.
on.
Did you see what computers looked like back then? You didn't even have
Oh yeah.
Windows 1. I mean, did you have Windows 1 then? I don't know.
You had MS DOS is what you had.
Yeah,
If you were
yeah.
lucky, if you had MS DOS.
There was no GUI.
No, there wasn't.
Um,
At least not civilian wise. There was for military, but that's another story.
well,
For
but
another day.
my problem is that they just need to, you know, in my Star Trek,
Uh-huh.
they need to realize that that GUI from the 1980s
Hmm.
is antiquated. They need to step away and give me a GUI that I can actually download onto my phone or something like that. Because I'm sorry, I don't like the LCARs. I don't like them. I don't like, you know, the people try to shoehorn
Hmm.
stuff into the LCARs. It just doesn't work for me.
I
Um,
feel
I
I
mean,
feel you.
if they could actually come up with a feasible, you know, integration of data into it instead of just
Mhm.
random numbers scrolling, then yeah.
Well,
But
that's one of the things I think about the original series is kind of funny is that Jeffries is this guy who's like, well, how do I make a bridge set look like it's interesting or like stuff is really going on? And so he came up with the little blinky light machines, you know, on the little
mhm.
displays. And so a lot of them are just nonsense. I mean, a lot if you look at the displays, the actual what they are,
Oh
some
yeah,
of them are just like my favorite one of all time is when Scotty's in the break room, in the recreation room, and he's taking a breather. Kirk walks in and goes, "Are you reading another technical manual?" He goes, "How aren't you supposed to be relaxing?" "I am relaxing, Captain." And the diagram is a fuel pump for a fighter jet,
yeah.
but it's decorated as though it's the phaser, something to do with phasers. But you
hmm
can see it has a pump inside of it because the nozzle is able to move around inside the assembly, so it can transfer fuel. And you know, people are like, so you know, why does this look so antiquated? Why does this look so like you know this that or the other? I'm like, well, it was a fuel pump from the 1960s. It's not going to look like something like from Tesla or SpaceX or anything like that. Um, so I find that kind of ironic, but I also think that Jeffries actually got it kind of right because the interface for a lot of starships and a lot of interface equipment is going to be what's important now, what you need to focus on, and where the problem is, and get it fixed because you don't have a lot of time sitting there going, well, I'm going to look through these 5 pages of information to see what's going on. Oh, here it is. Oh, this what's need to be fixed. No, it's going to come up on the screen in bright red and be like, oh, well, this is a problem. I should get that taken care of before something happens. And it goes boom.
Oh yeah, and I agree. I mean, basically the problem is when they designed it, it was designed by someone who was all about the looks and not by someone who was about the the actual functionality of it. And that's one of the things that weirds me out. I mean, even by the 1980s, they should have realized that Star Trek is full of nitpicky schmucks like you and me that are going to just gonna be tearing this whole thing apart. So they should have known that.
Yeah, it's like the kid from Galaxy Quest, who's like looking at the blueprints and he's trying to help Tim Allen through the ship. And he's like, turn left here. Do you have this section for like sections 18Y through 23G? And he's like, well, I'm looking it up. Let me see,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But the funny part is that, even with all the like stuff that's like out of date and whatnot, and trust me, there's a lot of stuff that is like the door sensors are kind of weird and wacky in Star Trek because there are no door sensors. There's some guy sitting up on top and he's like waiting for them to come through. And then there's no legend or anything for you.
But because of Star Trek and those sliding doors, that's the reason that automatic sliding doors were invented. That's straight from Star Trek. Hypo sprays, straight from Star Trek. Bluetooth earpieces. Uhura had it first.
Yeah.
All right. Our tablets from the pads, cell phones from the communicators. I mean, even the guy who came up with cell phones said straight off he wanted to create a Star Trek communicator. All right. And hell, remember those first, for a while there, flip phones were the phones. Matter of fact, my wife has a flip phone again now because she has one of the Samsung Flip 6s. And so she's got her flip phone back. She's a happy camper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think eventually the format that we're going to be going to is essentially something akin to the tricorder because the interface and the whatnot for a smartphone is very similar to the interface that people think of when you use a tricorder almost. You have all the information in a small display, handheld device. So I'm kind of wondering, I'm kind of thinking that, by the time we get to 2030, 2035, you'll be in solid state molecular block technology. Your cell phone will be effectively a tricorder for all intents and purposes. They'll be wedded together instead of being separate devices. But the other part of it is that, going into the future, what does this say for what technology you see on Star Trek and what it's obsolete, how to deal with it, or, if they were to update it, what it would look like. I don't really think that the bridge interfaces really need to be changed all that much. I think they need to be updated. I think wholesale replacement is not really called for because I still think as designed for a space age control center, it does make sense. Expanse there was a TV show called The Expanse. If you guys are not familiar with it, you should check it out on Prime. But they have taken and built their sets and according to current technological ideas. And even today, I mean, they're starting to fall behind a little bit because, I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out now makes what they did then just a few years ago look like it might be getting dated. But even so, the general idea on how to present data and design still basically is correct for a control center. There's not much difference. So I think that, if somebody were to go in and update the interfaces where they're all, instead of like having these separate, windows all around this bridge, for like the screens, I would just make everything just one solid display at the top and then all solid displays down towards the bottom. And then you could put up whatever you want on each section. And then that would be easy to do.
Yeah, but I do have to say, I think that and it was a bad thing in the 80s, trying to go everything to touch. You know, just everything was all touch, touch, touch. All right, that may work for some things, but it surely does not work for good keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and it does not work for driving something.
No.
All right,
Tactile touch where your fingers stay on something and don't move
yeah,
is almost imperative. Yeah.
yeah, it is. I mean, they have tried before in the past in some prototype vehicles to do drive-by-wire systems or a yokeless, you know, where they actually have like a joystick that they are driving the vehicle with. That just ended in tears. It was not a good thing. And I just think, you know, and that was one of my problems when it came to like you know, the next gen and stuff like that, where you know you're flying the ship by touchscreen. Really. Right? That's one of the things I enjoyed about Farscape is, you know, whenever it came time to get down and dirty, they're like, all right, bring up the yoke. I'm flying this manually, and so they actually had that. You know, even freaking what is it? Galaxy Quest had that. Yeah.
Well, Tommy was playing it with a little joystick. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I really think that that's something that they need to think about, as well as, you know, just actually, because if you look at any, you know, any vessel now, any that is out there and being used by, you know, any branch from any country, you know, they've had now what, 40 years to switch over to, you know, just touch, you know, controls, and not a single one of them has done it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's like one of the things that is a problem and is endemic to touchpad controls is they get dirty, they get smudgy.
Oh
The
yeah.
other part of the problem is you lose power, you lose control. Period. I mean, that's it. I mean, you don't have electrical power to the panel. You don't have a picture. You don't get to see what you're flying, and
And
that's
if
it.
something happens where all the rocks come out of the panel, like they do in Voyager,
Death to Riker, chunk of wood killed him. I still love that scene. It's like, you know, Picard's like, you know, he's trying to fight the Klingons in yesterday's Enterprise, and you know, redoubtable first officers. It's like handling stuff, and he gets a wood chuck in the neck, and then he's dead.
well,
But,
yesterday's Enterprise. That matter of fact, let's bring it back. That's one of the things that irritates me, is because yesterday's Enterprise is one that they brought the Enterprise C into, right?
Yep.
All right. You know what they never did in that episode?
Give him a nice uniform.
They never showed. They never showed the blinking pattern of the strobes and the beacons, and that's the reason I'm having to use the Enterprise D's strobe pattern instead of the one for the Enterprise C, because they never showed the strobe pattern.
Are you a little bit bitter over that?
Just a smidge, just a little bit. That's all I'm saying about that right now.
I'm not going to say you should hold a grudge, but I'm going to say you're probably not going to be able to do much about that because Greg Jean already passed away, and that's who built that model.
Well, no. The problem is
he did a great job. Yeah.
No, he did a great job of building the model. And my problem is the FX crew who lit it, all right, and the director who shot it and didn't show the blinkies.
I will say one of the funnier elements to Enterprise C, and I still think this is funny, is I'm like, okay, so we're going to design a Federation of starships between Excelsior and the D. So we took Probert's design, modified it, and then we went, hey, you know what? We're going to make those lines really glaringly contrasted. So we're going to take some really bright baby blue color against a light gray hull, and we're going to blend those at all. We're just going to lay it down, make it very, very high contrast, and then we're going to put some damage on it, and then we're going to forget to do any lighting. It's great. It's awesome.
Actually, I do enjoy the fact that the paint scheme that they used on it, because that means that you know, I got the paint masks from Aztec Dummies in order to do the you know, the good paint scheme on this model, and it's stupid easy because I don't have any Aztecing to do, because there was no Aztecing on that ship.
Yeah, it's just straight up, big blocky areas. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh look, here's a window for the gray. Here's another window for the gray.
Mm-hmm.
Huge deflector section lines. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right,
Huge escape pods.
yeah.
All right. And I literally I ordered in, I think it's from JT Graphics. I ordered in some aftermarket decals for the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and but the thing about the JT Graphics is that not only is there a decal for all of the escape pods with some extras, thankfully, all right, but if you actually break out with a magnifying glass and look closely, they're individually numbered. All right. So not only do you have the registry on each pod, you actually have the number of each pod on each pod.
And you're having
So,
fun with that, aren't you?
oh, it's going to be so great. I'm going to try really hard not to touch myself.
You were telling me about how many things you had to do on the windows. I was like, yeah, you probably have as much fun with the escape pods because there's a huge number of escape pods on it as
Not as
well.
many as there are windows. And
Yeah.
one of my worries is because I didn't light block all the windows. Remember, I did like 60 some
Mhm.
odd percent of them. That way, a third of them were still dark, so it broke it up some, and also,
Mhm.
third shift got to sleep. Um, but when I'm going to be done with everything, I have to go back through and pick off all those ones. I don't remember which ones I put them on.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and there was literally like 600 plus windows I did.
So I'm not saying you could do this, but I think it'd be hilarious. Is how Bill Krause, Admiral Buck, if
Yeah,
you people don't know who that is,
yeah.
but
Admiral Buck, if you're nasty, go ahead.
but he does like this detailing on the windows. It's like awesome. And actually, I'd love to see like just Kirk's bedroom. The windows
Oh,
are
oh,
turned red.
you mean the
Kirk,
film backgrounds?
yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
windows are turned red, and then you have a green Orion woman in there. I'm not saying what's going on exactly, but the windows, the room is red, and and there's a green Orion woman.
Yeah,
Just leave it at that.
he
just
he
I'm
does
not going to
the
crucify myself any further.
basically what he does for those who don't know is you can get scenes from the movie basically done on color 35 film, so you have like an actual transfer film that you can light from the back and see the stuff from the front, kind of like your old Viewmasters. And but there's the scene and it's really teeny tiny, and some people who are high up there in the modeling, they're higher than me by far, they will take those films and mount them behind the windows in the big 1/350 models. So if you're looking at the model and you look inside the windows, you'll see scenes from the show through the windows, which is uber cool and far above my level right now. I'm gonna get there though. I'm gonna get there.
I have bad news. My phone is running low on a charge, so I think
That's
we
okay.
probably
And
are
the
going
wife wants to eat, so
to.
we've been going for an hour and three.
Yeah. So,
All
well,
right. We will talk to everybody not next week, but the week after.
yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.
And we're okay. We'll make sure everything uploads, and it did. Okay. Dude, you need to come up with Mister. I'm able to do all kinds of cool artworky stuff. Um, you need to come up with some stuff for this podcast.
I do. I do. I actually got some stuff to go, but I'm not here. I'm not in Wichita, obviously.
Yeah,
So,
understood. But yeah,
so
just reminding you, you come up with like some stuff for it, or come up with like a intro. I mean, hell, I